And so when I think about being a disruptor and a change maker, like it's not like I said, I'm going to be this. It's just that I followed what I felt was needed for my communities, my people, for like the betterment of the industry and the people involved in it. The biggest thing that I would encourage and invite anyone listening is if you say you're going to do something, reduce your fucking lag time, prove your integrity and do it. Like, don't give me these words that you're an integrous person and you're authentic in your business. If you say one thing, you're going to do it.
Hey Coach, Xenia Wood here, and this is the Swift Coaches Academy podcast, created for service-based business owners who are ambitious enough to break free from the forever hustle and create scalable businesses that truly make an impact while also giving us freedom. With more than a decade of experience, we're not here to waste your time on theory. Instead, just sharing what works and what doesn't to help you get clear as fuck on your next move and show you exactly how to implement the systems and strategies that you need to scale with confidence. Welcome back to another episode of Swift Coaches Academy. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Rochene, who is another incredible fitness business coach. Very similar angle. What I love about you is just like the raw, uncensored, unfiltered, no bullshit. And like, I feel like people say that a lot, but like, I honestly feel like you are the person out of anyone else that I've met who seems to really show up that way and embody that. So I love that. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. That was lovely. I'm just like sitting here nodding my head being like, yeah, everyone says that they show up no bullshit, but do they actually? That was a good.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's what sort of drew me to you. And like, obviously, we've found each other on the gram and following for a little bit now. And I think some of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is obviously your story and you know, why you're an authority in the space. And I definitely see that through your content, but then also you do things a little differently. So I want to dive into the disruption, and then we can talk to maybe some mistakes that fitness business owners are making that you've seen through your decade plus in the industry.
Totally. Ooh, juicy angles. Love it. Let's do it.
Beautiful. All right. So give us the rundown. If someone is like, who the heck is Ro and why should I listen to her today? Talk me through like where your journey started in the fitness industry and how it's transitioned to where you are now.
Yeah, totally. So I am born and bred from New Zealand, and I arrived in Australia in 2012, and I was not into fitness. I mean, I was into fitness myself from my own training capacity when I was growing up through university and stuff like that. But when I came to Australia in 2012, I went into finance, which is what I was doing in New Zealand, and I naturally went into a gym. And I was someone that was targeted from the good life model of AIPT, of running on the treadmills. And I remember the stickers being like, become a PT in X amount of weeks. Like, that's how I literally became a PT.
Wow.
And back then I had a really poor relationship with training and body image and stuff like that. So, you know, I was overtraining. I was consuming these fucking stickers on the treadmill, like every day, running all these kilometers, right? And I was working in a bank and I just hated it. And I remember just thinking, well, I like this fitness thing. I was also in the space of like really like hating myself and my body. And that's actually why I got into the industry, is to help myself. I wanted more information so I could basically stay in my own story of like, how do I eat less? How do I train more? It was all because of that actually got me into the industry. It actually wasn't because I wanted to help people. So I got into the industry from my own needs. And then 2013, I went and started working in a Good Life. And I was in Good Life in Ipswich in Brisbane for a couple of years.
Wow.
So I didn't know any areas in Brisbane, and to me, it felt like the big, bold, beautiful world. But anyone that knows those areas is like, babes. But to me, because I come from New Zealand, it was very small. Like, I was just like, there is so much opportunities here, and I didn't realize like what everyone thought about the area or where I was in Australia. To me, it just felt like magic. And there was a lot of New Zealanders in the area. So I just felt like I was like somewhat at home, but in a lot of opportunities. So I started at a Good Life in Ipswich, and I was there for a couple of years. And then my partner got relocated to Melbourne. And so then I relocated to Melbourne and went into Another Good Life. And I was in Another Good Life for a couple of years, doing the PT thing, figuring myself out, figuring who I wanted to work with and all that kind of stuff. And then, especially when I came to Melbourne, that's when I really started to rebrand for my own personal name to then going, you know what, like, I love lifting. I had found heavy lifting through my own needs. I'd found powerlifting, and that did a lot for me to get me out of that space of hating myself and my body and stuff like that. And I just remember being like, so many more people need to experience this because there is a different way to do fitness for women. And that's when I decided to like then go into rebrand and create a brand called Barbell Babes Brigade. And I rebranded from Rochene H Personal Training to Barbell Babes Brigade. And when I did that, so many people said to me, you are stupid. You are niching too hard. You are going to turn off so much business. But I was like, I don't care. And back then, I didn't really know much about marketing, branding, niching. I just knew that that's what was needed for women. Like, it was such a personal pull. So I rebranded in 2015, and then I just followed the trajectory of helping women explore fitness in a different space, especially in the strength space. And then I ended up opening a gym a couple of years later. And then from that, so gym ownership, signed a lease at 2016. I owned two gyms over 8 years, one location, then moved into another. And then I recently sold my gym at the start of this year. So that was kind of like, started as a PT, started in a commercial space, followed my fucking heart's desire of the work that I wanted to do that I knew was really, really impactful. And I saw it. Like, I saw the transformation and the changes that happened from literally squat, pinch, deadlift. And I just knew that I needed to go down that path because there wasn't enough of that. I felt like a really big sense of responsibility that I had like found something for myself that I was like, this needs to happen. And when I opened the gym, we were like, I think we're probably like the second strength gym for women in Australia. But we were definitely the first powerlifting specific SBD performance based gym at that time, 2016, 17. And I felt like a lot of responsibility to like go like pass the torch to people. So that was driving a lot of like my business decisions at that stage. And then I just had, a heap of fun running gyms for 8 years. And like, I got disrupted by a lot of things. Like COVID happened. I still ran the gym, moved online. I was in Melbourne, so multiple lockdowns, etc. And then 2019 is when I started, like, we were starting to get a lot of clients that were coaches, and they would then come to me and start to ask questions around business and stuff like that. And I'd always been mentoring people. Like, I had staff when I was at Good Life, and I was naturally in that mentoring role. And I was mentoring my staff. So I just felt a natural progression to be like, I need to help more people in the business sense. And so I started running two companies at the same time. Um, and yeah, I like built up my business, built up my gym, had a full flourish team, etc. And then alongside that, I really started to step into mentoring. So I've been doing that for since 2019. And that was one of the biggest reasons that I decided to close that company and close that gym, is because this is my work now. Like, my biggest impact is with business owners because we can reach more people, more communities and stuff like that. So that's kind of like my trajectory in a nutshell of lots of words.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I can resonate with so much of it. It's so funny. I started at, I was in a clinic for a year because I'm an exercise physiologist, but then moved into Go Health Clubs, which has now I'm taken over by Good Life. So I did the
Yeah.
whole Good Life-esque thing as well.
Wild.
And you sort of talk about getting into it from your own sense of like passion rather than, wanting to help people. And I think that probably actually resonates with more people than we realize. Like, of course there's a help element, but so many people like recognize how powerful it was for them, and so they're like, I just want to be around this more. And I think I'm actually so grateful that I went down that route, because I feel like I have like cemented this incredible lifelong habit of like movement, exercise, no matter what capacity that looks like, because you're just indoctrinated into this for like a decade. And it's like, my partner literally this morning was saying, like, what are your goals with the gym? And I was like, well, like, I have a disc bulge at the moment, but sorry, I'm like doing some different stuff to support myself with that. But I was like, you know what, like, it's the things that continue to have me going back, even though I don't have like this really clear, defined quantitative goal right now, is like the mental clarity and the things that I get from it. And I don't feel like myself if I'm not doing it. And I think being in the industry kind of like like moves you into that space, whether you want to or
Mm.
not, because it's just the environment change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and that's interesting that you say that because I did competitive powerlifting since 2014 and I haven't competed in about a year and I actually am not doing any powerlifting. Like, powerlifting was so attached to my business. And I had to go through a really big identity shift that I'm still just kind of coming out of this year. And that has actually been a part of like giving powerlifting a break and seeing where I go and seeing what's happening. Like for the first time in literally a decade, I don't have any clear goals on my training. But yet, I train consistently like you
Mm.
because it's just a fabric of my identity. And like it's interesting that you say at the statement that you made of like this is why a lot of people actually get into the industry because there can be this like I think the smoke screen where people be like I want to help people, which yes, but a lot of coaches get into the industry because they've got their own shed. And like that's powerful to actually own that instead of being like I'm here to help people, which we all are, right? But like actually owning that, what, I was in this space and this is why I got into the industry. That's actually the power that we can then impart into our business too.
Mm, totally. Oh,
Mm.
cool. Awesome. So that's where you've been. And now, like, very similar story to me in terms of like, I'm hands off with my business now and focusing, you know, most of my time in my business academy program and supporting other coaches. I think that evolution is not for everyone, but I do think that, similar to you, you get to a point where you're like, well, I can only help so many people if I'm on the floor doing the thing. So, I've seen some people who go into like exercise education, which I did as well. And then also like the business coaching and things like that. With where you're at now, I'd love to know like so you sold the business obviously because you're transitioning. How is that process of selling and was it to a member? Was it someone you knew? Was it like, I just feel like I look at that and I'm like, wow, like people who do that and actually sell, because 70% or something of businesses don't sell, especially female-led businesses.
Correct. And like, I'm just getting chills actually opening this topic because this whole process of selling the gym has been eye opening to say the least. And it has been a lot of figuring it out because there are not a lot of people that actually sell a business. There's a lot of fitness gyms that close down, but to have a successful sale and a successful settlement and all of those kind of things, like that's not common. And it's really interesting because since I've sold the gym and it's very open, the amount of gym owners that have come to me that are now asking questions, like it's just opened up a lot of conversation for a lot of gym owners. The process of selling the gym, it was like this time last year. So the process started around September last year in the sense that I just felt there was something that was like shifting and like a narrative that I'd already or always said to myself, my mentor, people in my life is I will not be a gym owner by the time I'm 40. Like I just knew that that was like not it. I knew that I loved it, but when you do something for so long, I'd been in gym ownership for 8 years. Like, the level of problems, the solutions. Yes, you can be growing more. Yes, you can be doing all these kind of things. And we were, but I also didn't want to have multiple gyms. I didn't necessarily, well, there was a time where I was toying around with opening one in Queensland, but I got to a point where I was like, I know these set of problems and it's actually not stimulating me anymore as an entrepreneur. And like to actually say that, like people, you can get bored with your work. And I was like, bored but like not it wasn't like negative that I hated it, but I like to be stimulated. I'm creative. I like ideas. So I decided that like in that September kind of patch, I went back to my mentor and I was like, there's something here. Like I'm coming back into a 3-month container. Like we need to like fucking go with this. And it was interesting because when I look back, like I journal everything. I look back at this time that our WhatsApp chat where we kind of communicated, it was called Beyond. And that's all I knew. I knew that there was something else that was coming, but I didn't really know. But keeping in mind that I was already doing mentoring, I already had another company. So I knew that it was obviously in this space, but I didn't know what was coming. So I made the decision. And for me, I'm someone that when I've made a decision, I act. Like it takes me a while to get to a decision, but once I've decided, it's not a question. And so from that, into motion. So I then went into research mode. I then went into, well, how do you actually sell a gym? And, I did all my research in the market, had a look at Seek, had a look at like, how do I actually fucking do this? Had a look at like, how do I value it? All this kind of stuff. Talked to my accountant, my bookkeeper. I pulled all the resources that I had And quite honestly, I put all the parts together myself. And like, then I created a proposal. I actually then went to vendors. So I went to 4 to 5 different vendors and I said, this is what I'm doing. And I trusted them. But I also, the reason I approached these people is because I felt like it was a very good opportunity, but also a good move for like the business and the company. Like these were not people that I didn't know because I've been in the industry for a while. Like I have networks, right? And I approached them with my proposal and like literally it was a Google sheet, like reports, profit and loss. Like I did the whole fucking shebang. It felt like my biggest assignment at uni. Like I remember doing it. I remember like doing it all and like writing it all. And then I got, my mentor to have a look at it. I got financial planners to look at it. Like all this advice that I could get, I pulled people in to have a look at it. And then I proposed it to the vendors and then I went into negotiations and I had then made that decision. And coming into like October, November is when I approached vendors. I had made a decision. I don't want to continue services under this company in 2024. So I was like, well, if that's going to happen, you're going to do this in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And that's literally what happened. So I negotiated my biggest sale in anything, back and forths, all that kind of stuff, held space with the vendors going through negotiations. And then we came up and then I closed the gym from services at the end of the year and then transitioned to the new buyer 2025. And then my settlement was officially in February. So I just had these decisions and I had these thoughts in mind, but I was also put on the table that if I couldn't find the vendor and we couldn't get across the line, I was also prepared to keep the gym running and keep the community going. Because at the end of the day, it was still a business decision and I'm not dumb. Like if I couldn't get what I wanted and if I didn't think it was the good move, I was prepared to wait on it and then keep like staying in the gym and staying in that to then get it to that space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah,
I
that's
love
how I
that.
did
That's
it.
awesome. And like obviously there's so many different ways to sell a business and things like that, but I appreciate you sharing that because I feel like some people will sit and wait on that decision and then they'll like or they'll make the decision and then they won't act on it. So I think that that's really powerful that you like obviously get all the information that you need to make the decision and then you're like, let's just fucking go. And I find that
Yeah.
that's a huge trait of successful business owners is just like as soon as that decision's made, it's like, what's the step? Let's go.
It's a
And they
decision.
move fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
Like it's a decision, right? Like, sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
The thing with this is that when I made my decision, I was also not naive that this could not go through. So it was also looking at different options, right? And like looking at if this doesn't go through, what is my plan B? What is my plan C? Knowing that I trust myself, I know what I'm capable of. I know that plan A is a very high chance, but like this is business. You get it. Like you still have to like not bullshit yourself. And I think that a lot of business owners in fitness, they will fuck around with making a decision and think that it's going to be 100%. Like I was still like there was still a level of I'm unsure or weariness, but the percentage still outweighed. Like I don't care if I'm 60% certain, over 40% uncertain, that's good enough for me. Like because I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily move and go, yeah, this is 110% ready to go. That's
Well,
not
you
business.
can't know the answer until you've
No,
done the thing. I think, yeah, I
totally.
have so many conversations with whether it's like potential clients in our rehab business or like business students, and they're like, oh, like I just want to think about it like that. And I'm like, you won't get more information by thinking about it. You get information by being in it and like you said, trusting yourself that you will get out of it what you need. And like I've
Yeah.
had programs where what I get out of it is like that wasn't for me and these are the things that I don't want to do moving forward. And you still
Like,
like you've moved, you're forward. I think the stuckness comes from the inaction or the indecision and therefore you've made a decision to not act. And that
totally.
time delay, I think the further along you get in business or life or whatever, you recognize that like putting off making a decision is not only like it's probably feeling icky in your body, but it's also the delay to get to the result that you want, even if it means it's going to take you more time to get there because at least you've moved. And that momentum, I think, is
Right.
huge.
So right. Like that's a good point. It's like what are the consequences of staying in it? Like what are the consequences of like not making a decision? Because the fact of the matter is that when I decided to make that decision, I also lost a lot of money in that process. I also lost a lot of money, not just money, like there's so many other things, but from a business perspective, choosing to go, I'm not continuing services after December, I was still paying for so much shit for a couple of months, right? And like, then there was refunds and there was people that were not happy, all this kind of stuff. And like, I had prepared mentally for repercussions of that, but there was also a financial implication of what I decided to do. But I was like, this is part of it. Like, this is part of pretty much dismantling a 10-year career. What do you expect? Like, this isn't
It's
going to
not
be
going to
like
go swimmingly.
rainbows. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, no, I love that. Um, Switching gears a little bit, I'd love to talk about, like, you often mention that you're a disruptor in the fitness space, and I would love to know, like, in your words, like what that means to you, and perhaps if you could give us some examples of like things that you've done differently, that could help other people who are maybe feeling like they're a bit same as everyone else.
Totally. So when I think about what it means to be a disruptor, I hadn't actually like, what's the word? I hadn't actually like fully embodied that that's actually what I do. Like I'd always felt those words of like change maker, trailblazer, disruptor. I found them very cliche and I felt like I couldn't connect with them. But when I actually looked at my career, it was very obvious to me that that's what I do, right? Whether it was like moving into Good Life, I hired a staff member when I was at Good Life. And I was like, I don't know how to do it, but I was like, I'm going to pay this person's rent. They're going to have their own ABN. And I just dictated the whole fucking thing. I was like, they're going to have an ABN under Good Life and technically be a separate coach, but then I'm going to pay their rent with my bank account. And I just like fucking went like, I mean, call it shady or it just made sense to me. I was like, this is what I want to do. I don't know if it's possible, but I just made it happen, right? So whether it was like figuring out that kind of thing, and then when it was like opening the gym and being like, you're gonna niche too much, you know, why are you doing such a boutique style gym with a very small fucking sport that is going to cut off a lot of people potentially to, other people that don't get it, but it or like openly opened so much business and so much community for me. And so when I think about being a disruptor and a change maker, like it's not like I said, I'm going to be this. It's just that I followed what I felt was needed for my communities, my people, for like the betterment of the industry and the people involved in it. And then when I really like landed in that and was like, that is actually what you're doing, that's when those labels kind of came. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I think what I'm hearing is like you were very much, obviously, you were perhaps your client a couple years ahead, right? So you knew what
Totally.
they want, what they needed, what their pain points and their desires were. And it sounds like you were very just like, block out the noise. I'm focused on what my clients or what I potentially needed back in the day. And we fucking need this because it's not here. So I'm just going to make it happen.
Totally. And that's the same that I do with my business owners, right? So whether it was in fitness, it started with the brand of branding to BBB, niching down, all these kind of things, whether it was hiring a coach, like I was like, this is just what I need to create the vision of what I genuinely know is needed in the industry. And now when I think about being a disruptor and me leading my clients and putting forth that, like what this means to me now is my clients don't come necessarily come to me and go, I just want 50K cash months. Like when I think about business owners, they want so much more depth from their businesses. Yes, we want money. Yes, we want financial stability. Yes, we want all these kind of things. But I've got brag channels in all of my spaces, and my brag channels, my clients are bragging things like, I had a bill from an electrician for $2,000 and I didn't even have to flinch at paying that. That's a brag. My brag was my client is pregnant and she told me before her husband. That's a brag. Like my clients have a lot of depth towards like their career and what is meaningful for them. And it's so much more than just high cash months. And when I like sit in that, I'm like, what do business owners actually want? They want conversation that allows them to create a career, a business, a life that is full, from financials to experiences, but also like full in the like wider sense of their lifestyle. And so the more that I've thought about that, it continues to guide my work in the mentoring space of like, what can I do? What can I create? What needs to change so that I can like pour petrol on that and make it go boom harder? And that's actually what I've been doing recently around my next evolution of my work next year. Bringing in financial planners, bringing in accountants, bringing in lawyers. Like, this is all stuff that people will have little bits of. But for me to be that space that has the networks of people that I have in my world, like, I now feel like that's my next body of work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. We do something similar in ours, but I think it's always like to what capacity and how you bring those in is the nuance to it. But that's really cool because I do think that sometimes being a business coach is such a generalist thing, right? And you're like,
Right.
lead generation, sales, marketing, financials. And then it's like, but to have that depth of someone who actually is a financial planner, obviously, and provide that for people so that they have people they can trust by extension of you, I think is awesome.
Yeah. And like that's where the disruption piece comes with my work with business owners. It's like it's all about like disrupting and it's not even like disrupting for the sake of it. For coaches that are working with their clients, it's genuinely just looking at what do your clients need? What does that feel aligned to you? Like, where are we going to serve them? And whether that's a disruption or not is going to be how it lives and breathes, right? Like, I didn't come into BBB and say, I'm going to disrupt the industry. It was like, I know that women need to experience fitness in a different way. I know they need different conversations. And so that all comes down to like our connection and our alignment with our clients and with the work that is meaningful to us. And that just happened to be that way. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, we don't come in going, okay, cool. I'm going to be unique. I'm going to stand out. I'm going to do all this kind of stuff. What it comes down to is like, who are you? What is your zone of genius? What is your body of work that you know will help the industry? And how does that look? And if it looks the same to other people, cool on paper. But when it's like fully from your heart space, like it's felt entirely fucking different, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I think like it sounds like for you, it's coming from like that vision, that mission, and like being really clear on like the outcomes that your clients need. Like you said, how do we serve them? And for me, that what popped out because talking about partnerships with my students and things like that, sometimes when I'm like, oh, okay, like, and you could add, something else, just let's say it's weight loss. You could also, if you're doing exercise and you don't have nutrition qualifications, I was like, you could add that. And instantly comes up like, oh, well, I don't have those qualifications. I have to go get, and I'm like, no. Like, you don't have to be an expert in everything and you can't. And so for you, it's the same thing with bringing a lawyer in or whatever. It's like you can't go and get all these degrees and qualifications, but I think instead it's that shift of who can do that, who do I know, who can I partner with, so that it's a win-win and it's the best outcome for the client, not like me from like an ego being like, well, I can still do that and I can still do this. And I think sometimes that's where it gets unstuck for people.
Totally. Like, it's all about purpose, mission, all these kind of beautiful things. Because honestly, when your people in your business win, when they get results, when they get PBs, when they get weight loss, like, we know the fitness industry is so driven by word of mouth, referrals, results, all that kind of stuff. And yes, marketing and strategy and sales make that go amazing and make that be louder and make that all these kind of things. But ultimately, we are working in a people based industry. And the more that we can serve our people, like, you literally can't fucking lose if they are at the forefront of your shit. And how that manifests itself into business, then we get our business tools to highlight and ignite that. Then we have our marketing strategies, then we have, our office suite, then we have all these really beautiful tools in business. But you can't shine shit, like, you have to have good stuff.
Oh, I love that. I'm just like literally I've got the visual of that analogy in my head and I'm like, yeah, pretty accurate.
You can't shine shit.
Oh goodness.
Well,
So obviously you've been doing business coaching since, like you said, 2019. I'm pretty sure that's the year I started that as well. I
Yeah.
got very similar to how you started at the
Oh,
start. Like
yeah.
I just got kept getting asked to have these like coffee catch ups, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I think like this advice seems pretty like people are saying like it's really solid and really
Yeah.
helpful, and then I was like, maybe I could like actually get people to do this consistently and have some accountability behind it and some structure, and then they'll probably get better results because you pay attention when you pay for it, right? So,
Mm.
um, yeah, very, very similar. But
So wild.
what I wanted to go into that I think you'll have some very strong opinions on, like always, which I love, is some of the biggest mistakes that when you maybe first start working with a business owner that you see them making, so that perhaps someone listening could go, shit, maybe I'm making that mistake too. How could I potentially stop that from happening to me as well?
Yeah. Okay. So when I have business owners coming in, um, there's a set of like things that I can see from a human perspective where I'm like, no amount of strategy is going to make this fucking hit. And so when I teach, and the position that I hold in business growth in general is that I don't necessarily live only in the strategy land. I don't necessarily live in like only follow these steps, because obviously there is a human that's operating those steps, that's, doing all the frameworks and stuff like that. So I'm always looking at strategy and like the identity of the person. And I also don't live fully in the identity or the human aspect, because you can have a very grounded and abundant person and they know fucking nothing about marketing, right? Like, you have to have both. And that's what I see. So whenever I have business owners come into my space, I'm always looking from the externals, which is my strategy, externals, how to's, framework, steps. I'm always assessing like, what do they actually not know? And then from an internal piece, where are they at from their solidness, their anchoredness, their conviction as a human, blah, 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 blah. And so to answer this question, like, I don't necessarily go, these are the issues here that we have to start here at the identity level. It has to be overlapping, because imagine if I had a business owner and you had a business owner that came in and you're like, they're shaky as fuck, there's no self-expression, they don't know who you are, and you just land in that and they don't sign any fucking clients for like 2 months. Like, that's not helpful. So what I will do, and the issues that I see straight away, is people do not know how to market. They just think they're doing it by creating content. And so like, they want to know, like, what should I post? What should I do? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're back. We actually need to learn some foundations about marketing. Like, they just want to focus on, what am I going to be doing today and this week to get a deliverable out so that I can attract clients? I mean, eye roll, you get it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, there has to be, the biggest misconception or the biggest issue that I see is they need to literally check themselves that there is so much more depth under what they're actually wanting to achieve, but they only want to do the thing now that they think is going to get the result. And particularly around marketing and particularly around content creation, that's what they want to do. And I'm like, I would rather you fucking take a hike on your content right now, learn some principles over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we can come back into it, because that is not helping and you're just becoming a content factory. So that's like the biggest thing. And then to pull into the next thing is that they are fucking slow. Like, they are slow. It shouldn't take someone, if I have a recording, and we've got resources and things like that around marketing, like, if you're going to take fucking 2 weeks to watch shit, good luck to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you really are going to take weeks on end to consume content that is a 5-minute thing on repeat 5 times, and you expect to learn it within one watch, good luck to you in the world of business. And like, there is just a lag time that people are like, I'll get to that. Or, you know, time will be the solution. It's like, no, they don't act fast enough. Like, if I give someone advice that day and they still feel a bit shaky about it, I don't give a shit. Go and do it. Like, go and do it and feel what it actually feels like to execute, because they're just slow. And so this lag time, I call it lag time, you have to reduce the lag time on anything that you're doing in business, whether it's creating marketing strategy, anything that's behind admin work behind the business, e.g. go and create a marketing strategy. If I talk to you today about it, you should be finishing it today so we can start executing tomorrow. Don't try and do it when you've got a Friday free next week, like that is a week and a half lag time. And, fitness businesses, they move really fast. Like gyms move fast, clients move fast, anything can happen. And it's like, if you're going to take 2 weeks to do basic shit, like you're already setting yourself for a very flaky experience in business.
Mm. I feel like that hits so well. And I hope that like people listening, and to be fair, like I'm sure you can too, but I definitely put my hand up and I'm like, I feel I'm guilty of that. Like
Yeah,
a fair,
you
like
are.
some of the time as well, right? But
Totally.
like even just saying that, even you, I'm sure you're like, I could act faster or I could do that,
Totally.
and it's about going, okay, well, instead of going, maybe if you're listening, like, I feel attacked by that or fuck, that's me. It's like, okay, but what's one thing that I can do today that moves me slightly further forward, as opposed to
Totally.
sitting in the feelings and the still not doing. And I find that helping encourage people, or like going through the action or the practical application of it then and there, or as soon as possible. Like I'll tell people, I'm like, cool, like you got what you needed from today's call, or like mute yourself for the rest of the call, complete it, tell me it's done before we finish the call today, right? Like if you've got what you needed, then like let's action right now. Let's not just sit around doing some like random shit or just like half-assing. I feel like, I saw this podcast from Matt McConaughey and Chris Williamson recently, and he was talking about using your full ass with everything, which I'm sure we've
Mm.
all heard before. But then he was also saying, what was it? I'm gonna forget it now. I'm gonna have to come back to it. It was something about like, oh no, I've lost it. But anyway,
Go on.
using your full ass with everything that you do, and I think just like committing to the decision, like when he went from um like doing the rom-coms and he was like, I'm not doing that anymore, and he stuck so solid and grounded in that,
Oh,
and he said
yeah.
that he got like a $14 million offer to do another rom-com, and he was like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. It was like, there's no
Yeah.
amount of money that could
Yeah.
persuade me, because I've made this decision and I'm so fucking grounded in it that my next iteration or thing needs to be this or something different.
Yes.
So um I feel like, maybe that's something that you could touch on as well, in terms of, when you make that decision, you're like in it. And it's like, of course, you're not going to make a stupid business decision and, unnecessarily throw money down the toilet with the business if it was operating well, and you could have kept it going if you didn't find the buyer that you wanted. But what do you do to maybe develop that self-trust or that confidence and conviction, even if you are only 60% sure?
Totally. Like, I think, not I think, I know that there is a misconception that coaches, business owners think that some big like fireworks is going to happen that makes you believe you're ready to go. Like being a convicted business owner and being someone that can build resilience and all of these like catchphrasy words that we hear, they are literally only built in the actual execution of the work, even when you feel uneasy. And like, if what I have said, and I do trigger a lot of people, like I do have equally polarizing. People will really engage with me or people won't. And like the people that get triggered by me, and it raises something for you, I actually want you to think and stop and go, why is this raising something in me? And how can I actually do better? Because being triggered is the same as being activated. Activate being challenge, I'm ready to rise, I'm ready to move. They are the same fucking thing. You're still getting an emotional charge from someone and it's still reflecting something back to you, right?
Mm.
And it's like in this conversation, if you're like, nah, this bitch is way too hard, like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but it is reflecting something so valuable back to you that you're slow and that you're getting trapped in fear. And we literally need to start going. And when I say start going, we know this, right? Just take the action. The level of action that you take, you have to genuinely play with what is kind of in your window of tolerance right now. So, for example, when I first started business, I am a completely different business owner than I was 11 years ago when I got into the industry in 2013. I was very scared. Like people that know me now cannot even resonate with what I tell them of who I was. I was scared. I couldn't look people in the eyes. I hated sales, all these kind of things. But the execution of something that would challenge me to my edges at that point in time in my window of tolerance gained traction. Whether it was like when an objection came up in your sales process, you just question that to the client. Tell me more. That's a level of conviction that you can gain in dealing with objections and dealing with sales and gaining confidence in your window of tolerance. Versus now, I can decide in September that I'm selling a gym, approach vendors with a full proposal, feel very convicted about it. That was only built from doing these micro window of tolerances from since like 2013. So it's not like something big happens where it's like, yeah, cool, I'm ready to go. You have to literally choose something that will give you a win that still stretches you. And then it adds that extra layer and that extra layer, et cetera, et cetera. And right now I'm actively pushing my window of tolerance. I'm
Mm.
learning about crypto, which scares the fuck out of me. Like, it scares me. And I'm like, something that scares me is good because like it's raising some window of tolerance for me, right? And so now I put myself in the arena. I invested $5,000 to literally learn, not in the market, to learn. Like, because I'm like, why does this scare me? This is my window of tolerance, but I also can put down $5,000 just to learn about something. Obviously, with the hope of like gaining from market, right? But like, that would not even be on the same planet of my world 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel that. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. I was talking to my best friend's husband the other day, and like sort of similar in terms of like you'd see him now and he like gets on stories and he's so confident and he presents like that, and you know he is like that, and yet he told me the other day that like he used to vomit before basketball games and exams because he was so
What?
anxious.
I
And
love
it's just,
that.
I think people don't realize that this everyone has to go through the repetition and the nervousness, and it frustrates me so much when I hear people say, oh yeah, but you're just confident, like you've, and I'm like, bruh, I have like above my desk I have 100 lesson plaque from speech and drama that I got in year 5. Like I did
I love
100
that.
lessons before I hit like
I
year
love
5, so I was
that.
10 years old and I did 100 lessons of speech and drama. It's like, bro, I
Yeah.
didn't come out of the womb like this either.
Didn't
I
come out
just
like
I
this.
just have like an extra like 20 years experience on you because you're starting
Yeah.
today and I started at 5 years old, you know?
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so
I love that so much. Like, you are built in the actual doing. And yes, we were born with a certain set of like whatever, but like we were not like this. Like, we were not convicted. We were not someone that could speak. We were not like coming onto a podcast being like, we're just gonna riff and like absolutely go with it because of this is who we are and we can hold this level of conversation. But it's not like that at the start, especially when you come to business, usually from a space of like, I've got my own shit to heal. Like,
yeah,
we're already broken humans. Do you know what
now
I
I'm
mean?
going to help other people.
Yeah. But I'm broken.
Oh, so true. I feel like that really in terms of talking about the confidence and things, something that I really resonate with it basically you were saying was like confidence comes after competence. Right? Like, I think that people are like, oh, I want to feel more confident. It's like, no, you need to do. And then after 100, 200, 10,000 reps, you will then be more confident than you were right now. And it reminds me of something else Layla Hormozi said, that anxiety is a mile wide and an inch deep. It's like you look at it and you're like, oh my
Oh, I
God,
love
it's
that. Yeah.
everywhere. And it seems so scary and you can't see the bottom. And when you take the step, you're like, oh, it's a fucking puddle. Right?
Yeah, like it's
You're like, why
nothing.
was I
It's actually
waiting?
so fine, right? But that's a thing, like, coaches, they'll dart off all these things like to their clients. Hit the reps, competence, practice, skills are transferable in the gym. And like they get really good at their own training, whether they go into powerlifting and they compete, but it's like you're only playing in the area that is actually still fucking safe for you to practice the reps. Whereas if you want to play in business and you are in business, you are in the fitness industry and you are wanting to scale, like the reps that you practice need to be when you actually started training 15 years ago. Remember how shit that felt? Remember when you hurt yourself? Remember when you had no idea? Like, you've only been playing. We get to a level where we can start scapegoating ourselves, right? Like, people can get to a level of like, oh, well, it's all transferable. It's only transferable if you actually fucking try. And like, business is a hard arena. Like, it is a saturated competitive market, and that is good. That is a good thing because it means that if you just keep moving, you can be very fucking successful in this industry. It's saturated, but it also has a lot of shit going on.
I love that you say saturation is good, because I think about it, if you're in a market that's not saturated, it's like, well, you have to do all the
There's
education
no
to
market.
even
There's
teach
no
people.
market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you have to create a market. How much fucking
Yeah.
harder is
That's
that
hard.
than like a market that, already exists? And so you can, one of the things that I've learned is that, like, you want to be in a growing industry or a growing market. We know coaching, we
Totally.
know education, and we know fitness and health are like trillion-dollar industries if you combine them all together.
Yeah.
And so it's like, don't go into a newspaper business, because it doesn't matter if you're the best newspaper business in the
It's shit.
world. Like, it's a shrinking, dying market. And so
Yeah.
being in that growing market, is helpful, because everyone, like, it's that rising tide lifts all ships, and it does. Like, if there's more money in the market, there's more of it that you can take, and you only need
There's
such a
more
small amount.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Like saturation is so good. It means that there is money to be had if you put your shit forward,
Mm.
because 99% of the coaches in the fitness industry will not do that. And it's actually like, that might sound like, oh, but there's so much to do. And, like, oh, it's going to take so much effort. And it's like, yes, it does take effort. Yes, it is hard. And it should be if you want to own a business that is multiple six figures into seven figures.
Mm.
It doesn't, it's not just going to be handed to you, but it's actually far simpler on paper than you think. But the execution and the consistency of the execution is the hard part.
Mm. Yeah. It
Yeah.
reminds me, what is it? I feel like I've got all these quotes and they're like on the tip of my tongue today. In terms of like, I wrote these what are they called? Like controversial statements. And I was like, what are all the controversial things that I think about the industry? And I said, if you're not willing to take big risks, go and work for someone who will. And I think that, like, it's so important that we understand, like, yes, you're not just going to get handed a six-figure business. That's why some people opt to be an employee, and that's also totally
Mm,
okay. But like,
that's fine.
you can't complain about the pathway that you chose. And
Totally.
you're either going to go and do this shit for someone else, or do this shit for yourself. And then the compounding growth effect of like being able to sell your business in, 8 years after creating it, or whatever it is. I think, just, if you're going to put in the time and effort anyway, I would prefer to sacrifice more in the short term and like double, triple down. And
Totally.
like, I'm just so grateful for the 21-year-old me, like, which is literally 10 years ago now, that was like, I'm going to do a business instead of work for someone else. And now I sit here and I'm like, I could not work for probably like 3-4 years based on what I've built up with my finances. And I don't say that to brag. I don't mean it like that. I just mean that, like, the effort and the work and the weekends and all the things that I put in, rather than I'm going to build a business in 3 hours a week. It's like, let's
Mm,
let's
mm.
get clear on reality.
But it's like, first of all, fucking brag, slay, like, hot. We love that.
Thank you.
But it's also like literally get bigger problems. Like, if we think about coaches wanting to build multiple six into seven figure businesses, and your problems are showing up, consistency, like elevating your services, tracking your data, like, get a better fucking problem than that. Like, that is not an issue. Like, it is so basic. And yes, there is finesse in the execution, but we are not, like, this is not to shit on our industry. This is not rocket science, right? Like, we are working with humans. We are elevating services. We are showing up in a space that serves them. And we get to do all of that in a way that genuinely feels good to us. Like, we're actually out of the system. We're out of like any kind of box. Like, the fitness industry is so young, and it is the Wild West, and it's so saturated, and all of that is so good because we get to do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah. I do love that, like, in terms of, because I work with allied health professionals as well. And then you've got the standards with UPRA, and it's like, oh, you can't post before and after photos, even though it's like those people may actually, have the knowledge and things to be able to get incredible results with people. But I do think that means that the people who are willing to, actually do the work that is required to get there will rise to the top. And yeah, I think there's so much opportunity. And it's kind of like, some people will see the opportunity and some people will just see the roadblocks.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, That's so okay. Like, I like to think about when coaches come into the industry and they're running a business, like the way that I see it is that there's business owners are going to be people that, they kind of like follow the mold, but then you have got these entrepreneurial people. And I know that that word can, for a lot of people, doesn't resonate, but the crux of it, I always ask you, why does that not resonate? Like, entrepreneurs are ideas creating machines, and like they are going to be the ones that will blow up their businesses. Like, business owners they just still follow the path, and business owners can still be replaced. Like, business owners, it's still a job, whereas entrepreneurs will create opportunity. And so, like, when you're thinking about what you're doing with your career as a whole, and I'm very intentional with using the word career, like, we are building lifestyles for ourselves, careers for ourselves. We're not creating a job that, you know, if you don't work, you don't get paid. Because if you think about it, and that's how your business actually is, you're actually not a business owner. You could be fucking, it's a job. It's a job. Whereas you really need to be looking at, if I want my business to keep serving people, if I want my lifestyle to keep going, how do I make this something that lives and breathes without me or continues to do the work? Like, we get to do that in the fitness industry. And it's just a conversation. And this is why I like to have these conversations, because it's far bigger than you think. Like, it's far wider and there's so many more opportunities. But people just get really stuck in these boxes of like, how do I market? How do I create these systems? How do I blah, blah, blah? Yes, needed. We both have these conversations together with our clients. But then when we do that, what else is there? And what's that lifestyle? What's that career? What's that, all that kind of stuff?
Totally. And it comes back to when you were saying, like, it's so much more than the high cash months. Obviously, that is something that helps serve these things. But I find so many business owners who are just going for more, more, more. And it's like, hang on, why did you do this in the first place? Probably to get more time freedom and potentially even location freedom. But now you've locked yourself into both of
Yeah.
those things and you have none of. And like you said,
And you hate your life.
you built a job and you're like, fuck, now how do I get out of my
Fuck
job?
my life.
How do I
And you've got so
create a
many
holiday?
expenses, and you're getting paid fuck all, and you can't buy property, and you can't create a family, and you can't do all these kind of things. Like, sorry, but this is what happens. Like, people scale, more money, more revenue, more top line revenue, but it actually does the fucking opposite of what you wanted in your business.
And thinking about that long term and reverse engineering, I think, is so, so
Yeah.
important. Oh, we're going
Yeah.
to have to wrap up. But the one thing that we could talk for days, I feel. But the one thing that I love to leave everyone with and ask our guests is, if there was one thing that someone listening could take away and take action on today, we're both obviously very big on action, what would you say that would be?
The biggest thing that I would encourage and invite anyone listening is, if you say you're going to do something, reduce your fucking lag time, prove your integrity and do it. Like, don't give me these words that you're an integrous person and you're authentic in your business. If you say one thing, you're going to do it.
I love that. That's awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Ro, where can people find more about you and the fitness industry disruptor that you are?
Perfect. Just follow me on Instagram. That's usually where I hang out the most. My handle is at Rochene Hawley, and I'm just hanging out there, showing my life, stimulating thoughts, turning people off and on. That's where you have fun.
I love that. Thank you so much for
Oh, that
your
was a
time.
pleasure. Thank you so
Oh, we will
much.
have to maybe do a round two at
Yeah,
some
we'll
point.
chat behind the
Yeah.
scenes. We've got some vibes going on, girlfriend.
I love it. Have a fantastic day.
See you later.
Bye. Hey, coach, before you go, the reason I do this every single week and the reason we've been able to surpass 100 episodes is because of you. So thank you. We're on a mission towards never seeing another coach leave the industry because they didn't have the skills or the confidence to scale. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that before you forget. I read every single one of the comments and share as many as I can. So if you found this episode valuable, sharing it with a friend who might be able to benefit from hearing it would honestly mean so much to me. Until next time, and in whatever you do, move swiftly.